Hola, hola. I'm Zulean Cruz-Diaz, your Texas Rican host, and this is Una Preguntita. Each week, you and I take one big question and break it down to grow in this real and messy life we live in. From engineering to farming in Hawaii to running my own business, I have learned that life does not come with a manual, pero sí con preguntas, with questions. So, tell me, amigui, have you ever felt like you're thriving in one area of your life but lost in another? Yeah, been there too. Each week, you and I dive into the stuff nobody really teaches us: how to lead, connect, and communicate better, y con tools that you can actually use. Grab tu cafecito, get comfy, and let's figure this out together. Esto es Una Preguntita, where curiosity and understanding lead to action. Vamos! Como siempre, amigui, we get started with la preguntita. This week's question is, what talk type are you? So a talk type is the way that you move through the world and communicate with others. It's how you process information, what you say, how you say it. And that's what we're going to dive into today. An example of this is actually something that happened to me. It was early on when I was starting my business and I was running one of my first workshops. So, for background, in addition to podcasting, where you're listening to me today, I run workshops to teach teams and individuals how to communicate and have healthy working environments. So, in one of these early workshops, I had this grand vision where I was going to have this collaborative environment, this interactive workshop full of like good energy, but I accidentally turned into a TED Talk. I got on my little soapbox and shared everything I knew and just kept going and going and going. And by the time I looked up, nobody had spoken for 30 minutes. Y cuando paré, when I stopped, you literally could have heard a pin drop. O sea, it was quiet and people had literally zoned out, and rightfully so. I knew I had missed the mark, not because I didn't know what I was teaching, but because I didn't leave space for the audience to connect. I've always believed that you end up learning more from the people around you that are attending the workshop or the conference than you actually do from the instructor. And that's because the people around you are connecting the lessons that they're learning from the instructor and are applying it to their own experiences, or are asking certain questions that you might not have thought about but makes total sense for you. So I wanted to bring this approach to my workshop, but totally missed it. And amigui, this is when I realized my talk type was getting in the way of the kind of space I actually wanted to build. I am a natural social butterfly, always have been and probably always will be. In some scenarios, being a social butterfly is great. I can initiate conversations. I could start up conversations with anybody como si nada. It was super easy for me. And I can also learn a few tricks to make me a stronger communicator with others, not at others. Do you see that difference? Talking with people rather than talking to people. Hoy, you and I will be going into the 4 different talk types. You'll be able to pinpoint, oh, that's me. Okay, how can I improve? I know this is not good practice to do, but I'm making an exception and I'm doing it anyways. I'm warning you beforehand, you don't need to do this, but if you want to listen to this recording, this podcast, knowing what talk type you are, what you're going to do is you're going to pause the podcast, go over to the right-hand side of your screen, hit those 3 dots, and click on the Go to Episode button. When you're on there, scroll down to the show notes and it'll be that first hyperlink that says, find your talk type. You'll hit that, and what you're going to do is you're going to message me the word quiz, and it'll get right started for you so you can find out what your talk type is. Once you have that talk type, come back to the podcast and hit play. I'm going to pause for like 3 seconds just so you can do this. Okay, so now that you are back, if you chose to go and take the quiz, let's get into the talk types. So starting off, I want to make sure that you know you're not too quiet or too much. You just have a talk type. Lean into it, use it, lead with it. The 4 talk types are, número 1, the thoughtful overthinker. Número 2, the social butterfly. Número 3, the quiet storm. Y 4, the take charge captain. So número 1, the thoughtful overthinker. This is somebody that you can think of as the analyzer. They are always precise, they're reflective, they want to get it right, they need clarity to feel safe, like things are okay. But clarity obsession can sometimes keep you quiet for too long. So somebody that relates to the thoughtful overthinker, in a meeting, your instinct is to understand everything with complete clarity. You go back and forth in your head trying to figure out the best way to frame the thought or the question that you might have. But by the time you make up your mind, the conversation's off on topic like number 5. Or another scenario is you're in charge of planning a group trip and you want to make sure everybody's happy. So if you're unsure of how others feel, you might end up like typing a text message to the group chat saying, hey, how about we go to this restaurant after? I've been saving it in my IG folder for years now and it looks so good. But then you don't want to pressure anybody into going if they don't want to go to the restaurant. So you delete that last part about having it saved in your folder for years, right? You don't want to give extra pressure. And then you think about it a little bit more and realize people may be tired and not want to go get food. Nah, never mind. No, I won't actually send this. So in the end, you delete the whole message and it never gets sent. If you're nodding your head, you may lean into this thoughtful overthinking bucket. There are positives and negatives to this. So positive is you are the best person to go to for brainstorming. You are a deep thinker and consider different scenarios, so you prep for a possible future. On the flip side, you may end up staying in the what ifs for too long and never ask your question or say what you were thinking. This can be really frustrating, especially if you feel lost or feel unheard because you missed your talking window. I have 2 pieces of advice if you lean into this thoughtful overthinker. Advice number 1, try using the clear communication equation, what plus why. What is talking about exactly what the topic is, what you're trying to get across. Why gives the context behind it. If we go back to that scenario where you're planning a trip for everybody and you wanted to talk about a possible restaurant that y'all can go to after the event, your what would be going to the restaurant after the event. Your why is it looks really good and I want to make sure we all stay happy and there's nobody hangry after. And so when you're able to use this clear communication equation, you're then able to get your message across more clearly, and you know what to add or take away from a message. If you want to hear more on this clear communication, listen to the episode called Get to the Point, How to Communicate Clearly and Avoid Confusion. I linked it in the show notes below, okay? That was advice number 1. Clear communication equals what plus why. The other piece of advice I have is if you are holding yourself back because of how others might react, I want you to remember you're only responsible for thinking for yourself. When I was learning to drive, my dad would say, Zulean, stop driving for others. They will make up their own decisions. Because I would try to do things because I was trying to predict what others might be doing on the road. And that ended up making me a hesitant driver, which is pretty dangerous. So when you are trying to figure out what to say, what to not say, which one to say it, how to say it, and you're in these kind of what if cycles, remember, you're only responsible for thinking for yourself. Others will think for themselves after. So we just went over thoughtful overthinkers. Ahora, somebody that might not be in their head as much and could probably benefit from being in their head a little more is the social butterfly. Social butterflies are quick to respond. They are known as the connectors. They are expressive, as in they show a lot of emotions. They need feedback and a sense of connection. When they're with others, they tend to fill the space with energy and stories and ideas, and it's really cool, right? So the positive is that if you lean into the social butterfly, you're a great icebreaker and you allow others around you to feel comfortable quicker than if you were not there. You also bring in this energy that just riles people up. Pero on the other side, you might end up leaving little room for others to talk, or you may end up talking over others. If this is the case, the advice I have is for you to take mini pauses. I've found that remembering to breathe actually helps with this. Instead of saying, don't talk, think, let me breathe. Have I listened yet? When you do this, when you take that little mini pause and you breathe and you remember to listen, it helps you realize, do I need to say something? Do I need to change the energy around? Do I need to do XYZ? Or am I allowing others to come up and also show their feathers? So far, we've hit 2 out of the 4. We hit the thoughtful overthinker. We hit número 2, the social butterfly. Next up is the quiet storm. The quiet storm is like the strategic listener. They're observant, they're intentional, they have powerful timing, and they need space to think before contributing. If you think you lean into these characteristics, you might be leaning into the quiet storm. And so, vamos a decir, let's say you are in a brainstorming meeting. You tend to listen, absorb, and are an internal processor. So others that are verbal processors, o sea, that they have to talk out loud to process the ideas or the thoughts, might ask you like, why don't you speak up? But you're simply just still working on the ideas just in your head. And when you do talk, you think before you speak. You might say less, but your words mean more. So a positive to this is you're probably the best person to go to if there is a new program being developed or like a really complicated logistical strategy that needs to be worked on. You may take some time to get back to that individual with a solution, but it will be incredibly thought out and detailed. On the flip side, people may think you're checked out and not contributing enough. If you know your workplace is a quick thinking team that values quickness over quality, the advice I have for you is practice asking questions. You don't need to have a fully formed answer, but by asking questions, people can tend to follow your train of thought and see where you're going. So far, we've gone through the 3 talk types. Número 1, the thoughtful overthinker. Número 2, the social butterfly. Número 3, the quiet storm. And the last and final talk type is the take charge captain. Now remember, if you want to take this quiz to figure out which talk type you are, head over to my IG page at zconecta and DM me the word quiz. Okay, the take charge captain is the direct communicator. They pride themselves in being efficient and being bold and getting things done and telling the group what's next. And they tend to be known for assigning tasks or making decisions quickly, but later end up hearing, I didn't know what was happening from their team. This individual takes charge, but misses checking in to see if everybody agreed or is following along. A positive is when something goes wrong or doesn't go as planned, you, if you lean into this, the take charge captain, are the one that steps up and gets the train back on tracks. On the other side, do you remember that saying, it's not what you do, but how you do it? if you grab onto the reins too quick or too tight and speed ahead, you tend to lose the team. You find yourself talking to them versus with them. And you might end up overwhelmed and resentful. Why aren't they pulling their weight? So my advice for you is to avoid this cycle of feeling overwhelmed, overworked, and resentful. Slow down enough to ask questions. Questions like, does that make sense? What's the real challenge for you here? Allow others to figure out solutions for themselves. You don't always have to carry the whole team. These 4 talk types, número 1, the thoughtful overthinker, número 2, the social butterfly, número 3, the quiet storm, y 4, the take charge captain, are all tools to help you see the full picture of your communication with others. What is said, what is not said. It's not to give you a label. It's more of like a mirror. You can use it to help you grow, but not to box yourself in. Mira, the main takeaways for today is if you end up leaning into the thoughtful overthinker, that equation, the clear communication equals what plus y, is going to be your friend. Remember, you're only responsible for thinking for yourself. Social butterflies out there, pause and invite others in. Quiet storm, practice asking questions so people can see where your train of thought is going. And lastly, the take charge captain, slow down enough to ask questions. You don't have to fix or take on everything that comes up. If you haven't yet, take the quiz, figure out what talk type you are, and after the quiz, it'll give you some other advice as to what you can work on to become a better communicator. Remember, head over to @ZConecta on Instagram and message me the word quiz, and it'll come right back up to you. This is a tool for growth. Mucha suerte.
Zulean!
Zuli! Hey, Zulean, what'd you learn this week?
Gracias, Ariana, for the question. Mira, this is actually probably really good for you and your brother as high achievers like me. Last week, I was struggling to learn a new lesson. That lesson was failure does not exist in adulthood. We often think of failure as not reaching a goal or missing a timeline or falling short of a version of success we created in the past. But here's the thing. We made those definitions, those goals, with the knowledge we had back then in the past, not what we know now or today. So is it really failure if the original expectation no longer fits your current reality? Or are we just holding on to an outdated standard that doesn't match the life we're actually living? Growing up, if we were moving on to the next grade or getting good grades or involved in extracurriculars, sports, organizations, etc., we were, quote, on the right path. Pero adulthood is messier, and there aren't those clear defined metrics to determine if we're, quote unquote, on the right path or on our way to, quote unquote, success. Success and failure aren't black and white. There's no rubric, no report card, just decisions, adjustments, and living and learning. So if you're feeling disappointed, ask yourself, where is this coming from? Is it tied to a past version of you, a childhood timeline, a goal that no longer makes sense? If so, maybe it's not failure. Maybe it's actually growth in disguise. That's the show, amigui. Si te gustó, if you liked it, make sure to share it, rate it, and write a review. ¿Qué aprendiste? What'd you take away from today? Como siempre, I'm your amiga Zulean, and I'm sending you off today con un huge abrazo, amigui. Nos vemos en la próxima.